Welcome to another episode of the Angels Positivity and Love series. Incredible guests the world over with amazing insights and incredible journeys that they're here to share with us. Oftentimes, they're giving service to others that's helping us all get out of the head, out of what we know concretely, to get into our hearts, expand, live, and love more. And today, that's one of those folks. She's coming back to us. She was episode 123 or episode 123 back in September of 2024. Dr. Jude Currivan. She has so many titles, roles, responsibilities: author, worldwide speaker, cosmologist, I'm going to say healer. She's been there and done that on a lot of stuff, and she's full of good cheer, very open. And again, she's here to help us with Gaia or Mother Earth, the universe, consciousness, love, and really trying to grasp what can't be grasped, the fabric of the universe, which I will argue is love. We're going to talk about this. And Jude, great to see you again. Great to have you on.
Michael, it's always great to be with you, even with the dad joke, even with the dad joke. No, it's
And
brilliant to be back. Thank you for the invitation.
and I always start the show, if you're watching and it's your first time, I always start the show with a dad joke for the guests to leave them smiley, laughing as they come in. So if you're wondering why there's so much good cheer, that's the reason. And I'll tell the dad joke for 1 second. Before we give Jude the $1 trillion question, is love the fabric of the universe? What's this all about? And what's happening to humanity right now? So I'm going to buy your time with this dad joke. Um, where do rainbows go when they're bad? Answer: prism, but it's a light sentence. Jude, it's $1 trillion question. Is humanity going through something very acute right now?
Very much so. And, a lot of folks are talking about it as a perfect storm of crises, a polycrisis. And if you're coming from a perspective of a worldview of separation, you might be able to see, conflicts, climate change, all the rest of it as almost separate problems that are coming together at this time. If you look deeper, you could describe it perhaps more as a meta crisis because it's more of a metaphysical crisis, it seems to me, in our psyche, because we have gone through this journey of ever greater perception of the world as separate. And so, in that worldview and that perspective, we've dislocated ourselves in many ways from that deeper grounding of who we are. But what I'm sharing now, what I'm reframing this as, instead of a meta crisis, perhaps we can reframe it as a metamorphosis. And when caterpillars have eaten all they can eat and there's nothing else to eat and they go into a cocoon, their old being breaks down, it dissolves into a nutrient soup. But in that nutrient soup, imaginal cells of the potential for the butterfly begin to form. And then they begin to find each other. And then they begin to form the new legs and well, caterpillars only have tiny little legs, but bigger legs and body and then wings, but also eyes. And for me, this is vital because a caterpillar sees the world through eyes that are enough for it to find food, but not much more. A butterfly's eyes are incredibly beautiful and complex, and they see the world in a completely different way. They see it in much more nuance, full of colour, full of possibility, which enables them then, when they finally break free of the cocoon and fly, to find flowers and to take and pollinate flowers and to spread that fertility and pollination. So it seems to me, when you ask that question, how I respond to it and how we respond to it is, yes, we are in this existential moment. But for me, it's not only a potential to break down, vitally, it's a potential to break through. So that's my response. And that's how I'm sharing it since we last met, which seems like yesterday. And
Does.
it was, what, 18 months ago or something like that? So much has happened. And it seems in many ways the turbulence, indeed, it has got more and more. But I would say that's what happens in a metamorphosis. That's what happens in a birthing process.
Is there opportunity for growth for all of us? Question number two: is love the fabric of the universe? And question number three, just to overload you here, could you share with us an experience during your lifetime as a kid, last week, dream time, awake, where the universe reached out to you very directly. Sparkly-eyed stranger said something, you turn, they're gone. One of those classic stories, or something else that's always inspired you as you fondly look back uh, at that moment.
Okay, first question, first answer. Yes, I believe we can. I mean, one of the things that I think is so important for us to realize is, and often in our world, we forget that we actually have agency. We have agency. We can choose to respond. Yeah. There's an amazing writer called Viktor Frankl who went through the Holocaust. And he has written some profoundly wise books that I would really recommend everybody to read. But this is what he said when he was in the concentration camps of Germany in the Second World War. He realized that the people who survived were the people with hope, the people who never let go of hope. Not as a sort of a wishy-washy thing, but something profoundly deep within each of them. So for me, hope, authentic hope, and trust, and that'll come to the answer to your second question, to trust that our universe is a loving universe, not only a living universe, which I can talk about forever with the evidence, as you well know, but a loving universe. So our growth, it seems to me, is how do we respond to the turbulence of these times? Do we go within? Do we find that ongoing hope within us and hold to it? Hold to it gently and lightly and lovingly and trustingly. Secondly, how do we then take that beingness into the doingness of our lives? How do we express that love and that hope and the joy? Because there is so much joy, and having a mom and having a family who lived through the Second World War and the Blitz in the UK, in England, my mum always used to tell me, and my uncles and aunts used to tell me, that even in the darkest times, they would find joy in community, in each other, in the love they had for each other, and the simple things in life. And being present, this was vital because they didn't know what the day would bring, the night would bring. None of us know, but for them, the immediacy of that meant that they literally lived very consciously in the moment and took joy in that moment and community and relationship and love in that moment. So that's how I feel we can grow now, how we can respond now, not with hiding or, you know, um, going under the duvet because we can't, but how do we show up in the world now to grow, to love, to live, to find joy, to find gratitude in the simplest of things.
Before we go to number three and have you
Oh, I'm
recount,
not on to number two yet.
yeah, and I wanted to do an addendum to number two. We have a lot of structure in the world that seems to be trying to do more structure at the last minute.
Mm.
Maybe more censorship, more restrictions, more control, more effort to tell you how to think, how to be.
Mm.
And that's happened periodically. I can remember in the late 80s, just as a college student, I thought, oh, I'm never going to see it this tight again. And I was wrong on that. Can you talk to us just abstractly in a love and above way, high vibrational way, about what you're witnessing, whether it's the UK, Europe, US, Canada, Australia, Asia? There's a lot of momentum going on in all sorts of directions, a lot of flavor. And how is love keeping your head above the water and keeping it brilliantly positive about all this?
Well, I remember back 25 years ago, there was a wonderful book called The Mystic Heart that came out. And it talked about a notion, a concept of interspirituality, a realization that the various faith groups in the world were starting to talk to each other. And they were starting to realize commonalities between them. And yet at that time, it was still very much of, I really appreciate what you say, very polite, but I'm in my tradition, and my tradition is, the best tradition, but I'm going to be polite about your tradition. Over the last 25, but the gentleman, Father Wayne Keating, who wrote that, Wayne Teasdale, who wrote that, and Thomas Keating, the folks who sort of were writing at that time, were talking about a time would come where people would go beyond that because the evidence and the circumstances would call for a deeper relationships between everyone, and realizing that at the heart of all the world's faith traditions was also the commonality of the spiritual experiences, that we are literally inseparable from each other. And a time would come when that would be essentially taking the interfaith movements beyond faith, for all faiths and beyond, into an interspirituality movement. But what they said 25 years ago was that a time would come, in their view, that would be so turbulent, yeah, that it would actually call for this. It would either call for a breakdown into fear or a leap into love. And that leap into love will be because of the turbulence, not despite them, not despite it, but because we couldn't sit back complacently and go la la la, don't see anything here. So all the things that you're describing to me are opportunities, such as, for example, the Baha'i faith talks about, and others talk about, Findhorn community talks about when conflicts arise, it's an opportunity to go deeper into our humanity. This is what I feel the call is at the moment. How we answer that for each of us is our own choice. But I don't feel we can not answer it. We'll answer it one way or answer it another way, but we can't hide from it because it is here.
Beautiful. We're going to take another step in that direction. But first, let's have you recount one, two, or even three from childhood, from last week, dream time, that vacation in Turkey, and the stranger with the eyes that said something profound. You turn, they're gone. Do you have one of those moments in life that you could share with us?
No, I have numerous
Oh,
moments in
good.
life that I can share with you. The challenge is, which moments in life do we share? Because I've had these moments, Michael, as I think we spoke of before, since I was 4 years old. And the beautiful moments, are this like this necklace of pearls that's been my life. It's I've had so many. I tell you one example, which was fabulous. I hope I hadn't shared this with you before. It was some years ago, and I was leading a group to Egypt on a sacred journey in Egypt, and we're in the Sinai desert, and we're at a place called Catherine's Mount, or Catherine's Mount Sinai, and it was where in the biblical tradition Abraham had been, and it's an amazing site. And a lot of the folks who visit actually visit it so that they can see the dawn from it. So they have to climb in the night to get to the top to see the dawn. And it is spectacular. And so I was leading this group of folks, and we all went from where we were staying to the base of the mountain on camels. And my camel was the slowest camel I've ever ridden. It was like, it was not going very far, very fast. So I got separated from all the rest of the group. And I was convinced that they'd gone way ahead of me. They got to the bottom of the mountain, they climbed the mountain, and I wasn't there to hold space for them, to look after them, to make sure they were okay. Okay. So by the time I got to the bottom of the mountain with my camel and the gentleman who was taking us there, I was really concerned. It was the middle of the night. Okay. I had this vision that everybody else was up ahead. And so I got off the camel, and he said very kindly, Jude, are you okay? And I said, yes, of course, I'm fine, I'm fine. I'm just got to get up the mountain. And he said, do you know where you are? And I said, oh, yes, yes, yes. I hadn't a clue. I hadn't a clue. So he left. So I'm there in the middle of the night on my own at the bottom of a mountain. I had no idea how to climb, and terrified that my folks were ahead of me and some might be doing all sorts of falling, whatever it might be. And then I took a breath and I just breathed in and asked for help. Now, a few months before that, a dear friend of mine, Ahmed, had passed over, and I just felt his presence with me. And I asked for help, and literally, Michael, within 10 seconds, a gentleman came out of the shadows. Well, he could have been anybody, right? He could have. And he said, "Can I help you?" And I went, "Oh, please, please help me." And he said, what are you here for? And I said, "I need to climb the mountain because I've got all these folks who I'm with, and I think they're ahead of me." He said, "No worries." He said, "I'll help you. Let's climb together. I'm going up there because I'm part of the Bedouin families that live up there that look after the tourists and the visitors. Come with me." And I said, "Thank you." And I said, "My name is Jude. What's your name?" And he said, "Ahmed." And he took me up that mountain, 1,000 steps some more up that mountain. And when we got there was nobody else there. Instead of being faster than me, they were slower than me. So I'm out of breath, you can imagine. I've climbed, I'm out of, I'm red. Anyway, Ahmed got me a cup of tea and he sat me on the edge of the climb. And I looked out, the stars were above, and there was Leo above, and Regulus, the King Star there. It was just gorgeous. And I caught my breath and I settled and I rested. And about half an hour later, the first of my group started to come up. And by then, I looked like Buddha. I was calm. I was peaceful. My red face had calmed down. And I was so grateful and thankful to the universe and to the Ahmed in person and to my beloved friend Ahmed from the other side, who guided me, loved me, led me up that mountain.
I love this. That was beautiful. I have a follow-up to the previous question. I'm not sure. I know I've never brought it up on the show before. So I'm going to give you three data points, if I may. There's a famous person who talks on Instagram who channels remote views, and she mentioned her child receiving marbles and being pretty good at a very young age, being able to count like 1 to 5. And there's another adult right next to her as the first marble goes into the hand, and the little child says 1. The second marble, 2. Third marble, 3. Fourth marble, 4. Fifth marble, 4. The adults know it's 5. The child says 4. There's 4 marbles. We had a glitch, a split in time, or whatever you want to call that, the Mandela effect, and so on. Separately, there's a story through Cynthia Sue Larson, who's been on a few times, coming back for a third visit. Love her. Very fun, always on the show. Great energy. She has a reader or a person who wrote into her blog sharing an ER story. Something happened to her husband at their home. This ER is always full, always busy. They get there, the place is empty, just like a couple of nurses. Time didn't act normal. They were
Mhm,
seen. Somehow the
mhm,
clock went by for 5 hours, but they didn't see anybody. All the bays are empty. And so it
mhm,
was one of those where some people were acting super nice and they maybe knew something was up. I don't know. But it's again
mhm,
a split of some sort. And the third example, I have to cheat and look. Oh, I'm going to reference a movie that I only saw 5 minutes of 20 years ago or something. Celestine Prophecy, the movie. There's
mhm,
a Colombian jungle and a bunch of nice people who
mhm,
raise their vibe in a circle as soldiers are looking for them and they go
mhm,
invisible. And
mhm,
somehow I feel like all three are a little bit potentially connected. This may
mhm,
be a lot, and you may have a whole nother lexicon of terminology to
mhm.
use. They disappeared. The soldiers went right by, didn't know that they were there. And between those three little data points, can you talk to us about the fabric of the universe? And is it possible time can speed up, slow down much more? And what do you see happening for man down the road if we do go a little more open, a little more kindness, a little more compassion, little we'll call it kumbaya to make it fun. What happens if we do let go or open openness and we do the interconnectedness of all thing? Um, do you have a way to handle this topic? Which I think the answer is absolutely yes.
I do. I'm a both and girl. When anything's an either or, I think, what am I missing here? So, responding to what you just said, Michael, a couple of thoughts come to me. First of all, as a cosmologist, we wouldn't be, in my view, we would not be having this conversation if our universe hadn't been born 13.8 billion years ago. And the point is, when it began, that was the first moment of space time and the first moment of its evolutionary journey from simplicity to ever greater level complexity ever since then. And as best cosmologists and the laws of physics tell us, that's when time began. And we now understand that the reality of our universe, its appearance, is not its deeper level of causation. That's when we deepen into spirituality and deepen into universal consciousness and all of that. But in the sense of the space-time appearance of our universe and the way it can exist and evolve, there is an arrow of time from that first moment, all those moments to the 13.8 billion year journey to this moment. And what we understand is that the reality of our universe is pixelated, just as the images that we're looking at each other is pixelated. But the pixelation of our universe is space-time is at a tiny, tiny scale. It's called the Planck scale. And the Planck scale of length is as small as to an atom as an atom is to the whole universe now, okay? But there is a Planck scale of time. And that Planck scale of time is also almost unimaginably minute. It's 10 to the minus 44 seconds. In other words, it's 1 over 1 with 44 zeros of a second. So from the first moment of our universe, every Planck scale moment ever since till now, as space has expanded and time has flowed, this is the story of our universe. And that Planck scale moment does not change. In other words, it's 10 to the minus 44 seconds, 13.8 billion years ago, and all those moments since to now. So there is a universal flow of time that is constant. And if it wasn't, the laws of physics wouldn't work, quantum physics wouldn't work, we wouldn't be having this conversation. And even if we weren't here, that flow of time would continue in that way. So that's universal time, and that's led from the first simplicity to stars and black holes and planets and us. And there is a subjective experience of time. Einstein said it beautifully. He said, when he was talking about the relativity of time, because time is relative and space is relative, which is why they have to come together as space-time. Yeah? There's some really nerdy physics around this, but space-time is invariant. It doesn't slip and slide away. But he talked about an experience of sitting with a pretty girl, yeah? And an hour seems like a second, and an experience of sitting on a hot stove where a second seems like an hour. And so within our experiences of time, within universal time, which is invariant, constant, we do have moments where 5 hours can seem like 5 seconds. You know, it seems to me when we're creative, I don't know about you, but if I'm writing, it's writing through me and I have no idea of the passage of time. So there's that aspect of time. And then there is what I call multidimensionality and non-locality, where we go beyond the sort of the constraints within our universe of space-time, where within space-time, the speed of light is the cosmic speed cop, yeah? And we go into potentially timeless dimensions of consciousness. What I would say is in all of my experiences and all those that I've shared and heard from over 70 plus years, none of them violate the arrow of causality that is universal time, whether it be synchronicities or non-local phenomena. None of them actually violate that ongoing journey within our universe of its story.
Would love to, and we do not have time for this. I would love to ask about disclosure, the other side of physics that may not be out for public consumption,
Yeah,
maybe at a future discussion, or if you'd like to touch on it now, that would be fantastic. Just to
please.
say something about it.
Happy to. Can we finish with love? Because I'd love to
Please.
come back to love before we
Absolutely.
finish. Okay. Um, I mean, disclosure has been a long time coming. And this is disclosure that we're not alone in the universe, that there is extraterrestrial intelligences out there, and that, you know, for a very long time they have participated to some degree or other on our human journey on Earth. For me, I've had extraterrestrial experiences many times in my life. I've also visited and worked with indigenous communities, and for many indigenous communities, extraterrestrial relate their relations, and that it's part of the culture. I was spent time with Credo Mutwa, who was the Samazi of Samazis, the very top level of African Zulu tradition, shamanism. And he has written books about extraterrestrial involvement. And for that culture, it's part of who they are. It's part of how they relate. Also, South American shamans, many others. So, we also have the writings that go back to Sumerian times that talk of when the gods walked the earth. We have ancient Egyptian writings of the followers of Horus and when the gods walked the earth. I do feel that we're in a time when we will remember our extraterrestrial heritage far more than we do now, our intraterrestrial heritage, our relationships with the other multidimensional realms of Gaia, and our own human heritage. So, I think it's coming. I'm delighted it's coming. I think it's important that it comes. I hope that it helps us at this time of, you talked about growth. I hope that it's a time as we grow up, as we remember who we really are, because that can help us then evolve to who we can become.
I'm going to light some sage. I'll probably put my hands up and show light. And I do want to ask one more question, though, on the loving beings who are here to support us on our beautiful journeys or journey collectively. If I said Pleiadian, Arcturian, Lyran, Sirius, Andromeda, Orion, all the above and more, or is
Yeah.
there a favorite category? If it's baseball, football, is it the New York Giants? Is it Manchester United? Is there a favorite, or are you liking all sports as long as they're 11 above?
I pretty much all. I very much welcome all our relations to be with us, and I'm so grateful that they are not just extraterrestrial intelligences, but all the multidimensional intelligences of our beloved universe.
And I had it described once that angels, they come in all shapes, sizes, colors, all sorts of purposes from way, way, way out that make Andromeda, Orion, Sirius look like our neighbors, which they are. Uh, and what else? They live within us and around us, and they're technically still learning from us, even though from our perspective, they're perfect and have a lot of knowledge. I'm going to light a little bit of sage in the US of A just before we start to wrap this up. You're in the UK,
Mhm.
and we did this before the show to do full disclosure, speaking of disclosure, but we've done this on the show a lot. If you're wondering what's happening, you can catch Sage. It doesn't matter if the year's 2030, you're in Christchurch, Berlin, Tokyo. Time and space isn't exactly what we think it is. This is why we have experts like Jude on. You're already probably getting the Sage, but Jude, could you put a few words to it?
Mm. For me, sage is pure love. There's a purity in it. It cleanses, it reminds us that we are love. Whenever I feel smudged by sage, and I can feel it now, I feel that sense of remembered and rehearted love that it offers, it gifts.
Aw. And speaking of Celestine prophecy, I don't know if we've ever done this before. I forgot to do it before the show. But I just put my two fingers up like out of the movie and do this, and you see a flow of light between my fingers, aura, love, consciousness, whatever you want to call it. Very fun colors. But in India, they do it this way, and it's not just the movie. There was Sue Frederick on the show from Arizona who said in the 70s, before the movie was ever made, they were doing that back then. I just think
Mhm.
it's fun. If you want to look at ballerinas, you can, well, ballerinas might not be the best example, but chefs, cook folks in a kitchen that are getting along. You can see their light on them, bandmates that are getting along and jamming in a musical group. You can see all their light interconnectedness or even above. I'm going to do this. You get another dad joke real quick. Where in a hospital is the worst place to play hide and seek? Where? In the ICU.
Mhm.
And you'll see a little filament of light, and then I'll go bigger after you do. And Jude, what are you catching for a little wisp of light?
Yeah, I'm catching it. I caught it when you first went horizontal and you've moved it into a wave and now you're moving it into a spiral.
Okay, and see if you get an object in there. People have gotten phoenixes, hummingbird, Merkaba, you name it. It could be anything at this point. What are you getting now?
I'm, I'm just getting it's like I mean sometimes air elementals look like will-o'-the-wisps. That's what I'm getting. I'm getting a sort of
Beautiful.
sense of,
It,
you
what
know,
what
really
color or colors
living.
did you get?
I wasn't
What,
getting so much of a colour. I think I've probably got your turquoise shirt in my mind.
I,
It was a very gentle colour. If it was a colour at all, it was that sort of almost grey turquoise. It was a very light colour in that sense.
Hmm. And with your permission, we're going to have you close it out in just a moment with a final conclusion, a reminder for us all that no matter what we're seeing on TV or hearing from the neighbor, how to stay true to your heart, true to the earth, and true to the universe, and so on. Very uplifting message, if you don't mind. Um, with your permission, I'd love to put up two photographs. One of Joy the angel, it's just a pink ball of light. One of a human that I'm using as Abe, the Abraham of old, another angel who's on everyone's team, grandfatherly energy. You might get tobacco pipe smell, or it's not cognac, it's cologne. You might get a manly smell. Most angels I do, it's female, or that divine feminine feeling. With your, is that okay, Jude, if I put up just two
Sure.
photos quickly? Get anything you need. It could be a hug. You could just be like, got it. You don't have to share anything out loud. But if you do want to do the boomerang thing, you want to listen on our behalf, on behalf of humanity, do it because Joy is peppy. She'll share anything, anytime with anyone. What are you getting? What are you feeling? And what do you want to relay?
Joy always, I just feel light. She's peppy, she's feisty, she's happy, she's dancing, she doesn't care who sees her dancing. It's that lovely, oh, carefree sense.
I love it. And because you mentioned the Egypt trip, you mentioned Abraham. This is the
Hmm.
Abraham of old. He'll tell you he wasn't the nicest guy when he was a human, but full on angel and down to earth doing pop-ins, as I call it. So you can actually, I saw him once in Austin, Texas. He looked more like Hagrid out of what's that Harry Potter thing. But
Yeah,
normally he's more like Gandalf or the other guy, the white-haired guy, the head of the school. Um,
Dumbledore.
yeah, that guy. Thank you. He usually looks like that, but he was in disguise carrying Starbucks coffee cups, many of them. Some of our Januaries, when I was in Austin for 10 years, Austin, Texas, there's 70 degrees. This was the opposite. It was 20 degrees. And the person I'm with in a shut-off SUV, she had just gotten done at a 24-hour diner meeting Jesus, Mary. She's still in shock about all that. I see the guy only the external. She's been a long time psychic. She sees not the external, goes in and sees him. He's looking at two humans wondering what's up. Time went gobbledygook. When I got out of the car, he was gone. But the Starbucks coffee cups full, hot. He was going to deliver hot coffee to the homeless. And all I knew was Abe. It took 2 more years to learn it was the Abe of old, the Abraham. So here's what I use for him. If you don't mind catching a beauty, you can close your eyes and get him the way he wants to appear. You can catch something in the air to just to say hi, get a squeeze on the shoulder. And here's something private for the week, the weekend, the month, your next trip. But if you don't mind getting something from him that's good natured and humorous for all of us.
I'm hearing I meant well.
I love that. That was the best. Okay, and speaking of meaning well, how can we all do a little bit of more meaning well? How can we not take things so seriously? I get it. There's 6 million emails dropping at this moment in America, at least. Lots of politics in the UK. Oy vey. All over the globe. Matter of fact, I can China. Whew. Two generals disappearing. You name it. I could look anywhere. Maybe in Bali, it's a little calm, except I think there's volcanic activity or something there. But what do we do with all this, Jude? What's your reassurance for mankind?
I would say it before and I would say it now and I would say it again and again and again. Choose love. Just choose love. We make us, one of the things you were saying earlier, Michael, we make things so complicated. And they are turbulent. I'm not denying that. And I'm certainly not being sort of sweet, fluffy bunny. But for me, love is foundational. It's a human experience. And it's also the human experience that really connects us with the fundamental nature and truth of our universe. And since we last were together, I've worked with a wonderful colleague called Grant Story and others on the science of unitive love or soul. And what we're doing is we're starting to really build out on that to show just how powerful love is. And others are doing it too. But let's bring love in because it is the most powerful force in the universe. And, you know, if right relationship is the basis of physics, right relationship is surely the basis of our best lived lives.
Jude, you're wonderful, inspirational. With your permission, I'm going to just blow you a little energy like a hug to say I love you and thank you for being on the show and everything else. I'm going to let angels kind of supervise here, and I'll hold up two more photos. Just these are my top three, besides archangels. And I'm going to push a little bit of love and light your way. And if you could leave us with a mantra, one simplest reminder that if I said it 100 times in the darkest of hours, it would be uplifting. But here comes that push first. And if you don't mind saying yes or ready for you, are you ready?
Yes, I
Okay,
am.
here it comes. And my microphone's down here for the audience. Did you get something yummy?
I did. I just you're so lovely, and I just got this so gentle, yes, thank you very much sort of feeling. That's lovely. Thank you, Michael.
What's a short reminder that if we stuck with it for a little while or when we needed it, it would be like a little beacon of light?
Perhaps to tell ourselves, I, you know, we talk about having meaning and having purpose. We are meaning. We are purpose. I am universal meaning. I am universal purpose. I belong. I am love.
Jude Currivan, thank you very much for being a guest on the show. You are universal love holding space for all of us. So you're wonderful. Thank you again for being on. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Michael. Always a pleasure.